Welcome to another episode of Tech Build Network Conversations, where we host CTOs, founders, and technology leaders to really understand how tech teams are being built today. I'm thrilled to be joined by Kyle Davidson of Hypership. Hi, Kyle. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant. Kyle, we'll jump straight in. This is Tech Build Network Conversations. So I'm keen to see, what are you building at the minute that has most of your attention?
Well, I am currently bootstrapping a startup, which definitely has most of my attention. So I'm the co-founder of a software services business called Hypership, that a good friend of mine and I started in April this year, which I suppose kind of represents our mutual captivated attention, I think, of two big shifts that have happened in the software industry, or that are kind of currently happening in the software industry at the moment. The first one is the way that software gets created has changed rapidly, as in the past 2 years in particular, as a result of AI. And the second is that, and it's related in my mind. It's made way for a new type of role in software businesses, where T-shaped individuals, for want of a better word, the kind of people, that generalists that represent product engineering, business development expertise, can replace the activities that would have traditionally be carried out by a team of people. You can do it as kind of one individual, which is like this whole idea of a forward deployed engineer, which is kind of maybe become a bit of a buzzword, popularized by a lot of the frontier labs, and certainly Palantir. But yes, I guess my attention is mostly on meeting a moment in time, I guess. I personally can't really tell what the industry looks like in 2 years. I'm not sure anybody can, but
no, I don't think so.
When we first met, I talked about this, needing a front row seat to finding that out.
Yeah, brilliant. You talked about the change in the industry. What, in your opinion, would be, or what we've seen as the biggest change in technology teams today over the last couple of years?
I think so. We've kind of entered this world of, what's the right term? Like borrowed intelligence. Like, I can sit down and think about a problem and work through that problem in my mind, or at a whiteboard with my team or whatever. And maybe it'll take half an hour of focus. But after that, I'll achieve like a flow state where I kind of, time melts away a little bit. By the time I come out of it, I'll have formed a bunch of understandings, learnings, neural pathways in my brain, and developed a depth of understanding about something. So I could do that, or I could paste the problem into my ChatGPT or Claude subscription or whatever and get an instant answer. So that's been the big shift, which I think itself is kind of a natural thing to do, in the sense that, we're kind of in like this attention era. All content clips are like really short. What I don't know the exact stat, but I think like the younger generation's attention span is less than a minute.
Yeah, TikTok.
Yeah, instant. So we're in this world where everyone wants like instant gratification, and the average person, I think, that's really addictive. So I guess what I'm saying is that the biggest change, there's a lot of good data that we're losing the will to think a little bit. The biggest change I've seen in technology teams is that everybody on the team has the ability to produce outputs very quickly now. Even people that aren't traditionally trained, people that aren't engineers, could have the ability to produce similar outputs to someone that is traditionally trained, if both parties in that example are borrowing intelligence, that they both converge on some slight variation of the same answer from an LLM. So in a weird way, the biggest change I've seen in the last few years is about like culture of, just for want of a better word, core values, this kind of zeitgeist of technology teams is the thing that's actually changed the most as a result of the technology that those teams are using. Does that make sense? I kind of thinking about this.
No, completely. Yeah. It's a question I always like to ask. What would be one belief that you hold personally about maybe leading teams, building teams that many other leaders might disagree with?
I'd be curious if many people would disagree with this. I guess some people would, because it's an opinion that I guess comes from like a place of privilege and luck to be in a place where I can say this. But for me, the most important traits on the team are their alignment with who they are as an individual person to the job that they're doing. So this kind of the curiosity to learn more and more parts of the job. For me, like I love that I get to do this for work. It feels to me like a sort of, this is maybe too poetic, but like almost like an artistic expression, in the sense that like I can turn a creative idea in my mind into a real thing, right? Yeah. That's for me, that's art. But I can actually do something that solves problems for people in the real world. I've worked on applications for the NHS that impact patients, or the Department for Transport projects that impact road safety. So yeah, I tell the story a lot, but like before I had kids, it would be pretty normal for me to do a 9 to 5, bit of exercise, get dinner, and then just build software applications as a hobby until it was time for bed. So I think I gravitate towards that, and kind of anything that I don't know a lot about day to day. Like after so many years of engineering, I started focusing on marketing and building my own brand. And then after that, it was sales, like how do you actually close a bit of work? My thing is that when it comes to building teams, I kind of want to surround myself with other people that love what they do as much as, or as passionate and curious about the building things and the different parts of that as I am. So I think that kind of generalist, kind of jack of all trades, master of one, I would say. Like if you think of T-shape, the depth for me is in engineering, but to have that interest in all other parts of what it means to kind of have a business and do services and software consultancy, that's kind of what I gravitate to in terms of building teams around, which I don't know. It's probably not too much of a polarizing opinion, but it's just the way I think about it.
No, but what are you saying when you have maybe went to, build teams or hire before, in the past, you've looked for that sort of, I guess, that broader appreciation or broader skill set in individuals? Or
yeah, I think people that have been or tried to be founders of some sort are usually like really good candidates for forward deployed engineering, because they are people that are probably traditionally trained engineers, but have kind of, okay, I've done that, now I've moved past that. Maybe they've been a freelance contractor, they've had to find work and deal with setting up a business, and they're doing their taxes and all this stuff. They probably have had to focus on their own brand and sort of play into LinkedIn and doing a bit of blog content and stuff like that. I generally find that someone that's kind of done all of that stuff is really, really good in this AI era, because I think because that knowledge about any subject is so easily accessible. If you are someone that kind of, you can just roll the punches and deal with a new domain, you're just really well suited to using that technology for the better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, very much so. Brilliant. You mentioned the AI era there, Kyle, and it was probably something when we met recently, we talked about. Do you think AI has made it harder or easier to justify investing in junior talent?
Good question. Hard question. I think both. So there has been an industry-wide impact, I think, just factually, to early career opportunities and to be even more broadly, jobs as a whole. Yeah. I think there's this general feeling around AI where I kind of keep this soundbite in my head. It's like, it's the worst it'll ever be. It's only going to get better, which is a scary thought. But if you follow that trajectory, in theory, all jobs that involve the creation of software as a specialist role seem to be in jeopardy to some degree. And eventually businesses, domain experts, could just solve their own problems by asking an AI to build it. Or really in this world, like an AI brain is monitoring everything going on in a company, and it's just building whatever they need to remove friction for them automatically without them even having to articulate it and ask for it. I mean, if you really skip ahead, that feels like the natural trajectory of things. This is not where we're at today. And I'm not saying this is my opinion either. It's just part of the FUD, the fear, the uncertainty, the doubt. Combine this with like what you can do today, which is absolutely a lot more with a lot less than where we were at maybe 2 years ago. I think these things in tandem have been very damaging to early careers. Now, my personal opinion is, no matter what your business does, if you want to be a business that like survives, you have to be a business that adapts. Whatever it is you do, you need to also invest in the next generation. Otherwise, who's there to do the work in 20 years? I know I look old with the hair, but I'm 34. But when I'm kind of getting towards 60, I'm going to need like a younger generation.
Well, the succession plan. Yeah.
And we recently hired our first apprentice, Anna. So she's 19 and right at the beginning of her career. And personally, our approach there has been that she doesn't have access to AI yet as part of her day-to-day work. We're focusing on fundamentals, capability in those various pillars that we've talked about. So engineering, but also sales and product. And so in this era where like the way of working is kind of uncertain, or at least it's changing quite a bit, we're focusing on training Anna's way of thinking, probably more than anything else. Thinking about how to design systems, or how to solve problems, and how to navigate this new tooling, because it's going to continue to change. The dust hasn't settled on the ways of working around AI yet. But I'd love to flip that around to you and just hear your opinion, and because you have this frontline view of like the ebb and flow of the supply and demand of not just junior talent, but talent as a whole. Do you think like that reluctance to hire junior talent feels emotionally charged when you talk to employers, or is there an element of kind of herd mentality? Well, like our competitors aren't hiring, so maybe we shouldn't.
It's a really good question, and actually, I mentioned we've run about 4 or 5 sessions of our Tech Build Network roundtables, over the last couple of months, and that's been the theme. That's the theme, that because it's front and center of the majority of leaders going about. Anyone can see that graduate early careers hiring has dropped off a cliff. There's folks. It's actually really refreshing to hear you talk about Anna, Kyle, but there's plenty of businesses there that are it's a model that's worked for them historically. They're not listening to the noise. They're marching on, where others have been. The emotional piece is interesting. I'm not so sure. I think it's probably tied in. AI is playing a factor in that. I think the whole notion, and again, AI is sort of hand in hand with having to do more with less. On one of the last roundtables just the other week was interesting, where people were talking about the drag effect. So leaders are being forced. They're putting pressure on their teams to deliver more. Actually, they're probably not going to be able to deliver more right away if they're having to mentor, and there's a responsibility there. There's no point in bringing on sort of people who need a lot of hand holding and mentorship and leaving them to sink. So it's interesting, but
I think with anything, for me, it's like it's just another tool, another technology. I was talking to Richard Kirk about this today even, but it's like technology generally, innovation actually more broadly, it's always led to some kind of change in jobs or replacement of jobs, or it just changed. You know what I mean? It's like it's not this fixed goalpost. So it feels kind of natural to me that you would still hire junior talent. You come in with your eyes open that it's maybe not the job I started out doing 18 or geez, it wasn't that long ago. It's about 16 years ago. I was 19 when I first got in the industry. Yeah.
Brilliant. I'll come on to this is my favorite question. I think anyone that watches these, it's this is the sort of the car crash of the war story. We call it ship happens. So every leader, when they're building something, when they're shipping software, everyone will have a specific moment when things don't go to plan. So what's yours? Tell us about a time ship happened.
I feel like my entire entrepreneur journey is sort of a perpetual ship happens, so I quit a very comfortable leadership position at a FTSE 250 company around the time my wife and I were first expecting. I tried to bootstrap an enterprise document management business, which I later learned after I'd spent 9 months building an MVP pre-AI, that the average sales cycle for customers in that market is about 1.5 years long. So I came at it like if you build it, they will come. And then I built it and I was like, well, where is everybody? Then I pivoted to a second product business, which is it's a website that's live today. It's bidsonar.com. It's a platform that aggregates all of these UK public sector contracts and grants from a bunch of official sources into one place. And then it uses AI to notify you when there are opportunities that are relevant to your business. It's free to use. This isn't like an ad. If people want to try it, it always will be free to use. The journey with that was that I built it as a side project. It got a bunch of traction.
Okay.
And I think I convinced myself that I needed to come up with some kind of paid plan and try to funnel people over to paying for it. And it's like I couldn't figure it out. So at this point, I'm like 18 months out of the best job I had up until that point, and was out for dinner with my wife. And I remember just kind of saying I think I f***ed up. I don't even know if there's a lesson in this beyond keeping at it. But what happened really quickly after that was my third product business, which again was not supposed to be a business at all. It was just I built things on the side for fun. So I built a product for a blockchain network called Say that was quite popular in 2024, and it became this kind of go-to platform for creating, I suppose, what we call digital assets on that network. The company behind the network interviewed me and a handful of other top companies, which were all mostly American teams at the time in Miami or New York, basically vetting us for non-equity funding. Okay. And I learned later that while all of the American teams were asking for at least $1 million or $2 million of funding, that I was doing the very Northern Irish thing of this is just a bit of a side project. Didn't really expect it to be popular. Okay. Don't really have a roadmap. And long story short, despite messing up, the community that used that platform were really rallying behind me on social media around the time these funding rounds were announced. I made a kind of low 6 figures in a very quick amount of time for a side project where I'd been out of work for quite a bit for that time. And it just it brought me back to my head above water, Yeah. And I felt like at this point, I'm starting to kind of understand the game a bit more, graduating from the typical, if you build it, they will come engineer. And fourth business was a services business, an AI boutique. It basically worked from day one, very much a lifestyle business. It was just me, but I was getting to do a lot of AI work at a time where nobody really had any case studies of doing AI work. Like this was 2-3 years ago. Doing well, getting a lot of great advice along the way from started building up my network from people who had a lot more experience of running and growing businesses. So Tara Simpson, great friend, founded Instill, Gareth Workman, Chief AI Officer at Kainos, Ian Brown, who runs Founder Labs, just kind of accumulated a really good network really quickly. And then I eventually found my way back to Kainos as I took on a role as technical director for AI. Learned a lot there, and then eventually I was kind of ready to jump back into entrepreneurship, but I wanted my fifth business to be like more ambitious rather than lifestyle. I knew that if I worked with a co-founder, we'd move faster. So once again, quit my job. And now, obviously, wife and I are expecting our second child. So she's saying, I really have to stop quitting my job every time this happens. And yeah, we started Hypership. We're moving quickly, growing fast, and still just kind of going in, always learning. Not assuming we know everything. So, in terms of ship happens, I kind of feel like if your plans are just kind of always going to plan, they're like probably not particularly ambitious or pushing you out of your comfort zone enough, right? Like failure is like this, it's a natural part of just moving in an upward trajectory for me.
100%. Brilliant, great story. And that comes on, do you know what I had in the back of my mind when we met for coffee? You were talking about that, leaving something stable, secure, really good role, great company, to go out alone, get a front row seat amidst all this change and I guess chaos that's going on, in the industry, and actually build something, which I thought was so cool. Really, really respect. But there's probably that risk-taking thing, and you mentioned of young family, another baby in the way. What am I asking? What advice would you give, maybe to someone who has maybe a great idea in the back of their head? They're in somewhere, they're comfortable. There maybe a lot of people would be risk averse. Maybe a lot more people in this part of the world would be. Maybe compared to other areas, you're saying that the Americans asking for millions. What would your advice be to someone who's going like, could I?
I think there's an element of privilege here where like I've been in the industry doing this job for 16 years. And I think when I first left this kind of bubble of full-time employment, and particularly at a big company, and just feeling like, everybody knows Kainos, and I kind of realized quite quickly that like when you're out and you're on your own, it's not that you're just kind of out in the cold. There's whole other ecosystems there's whole other communities of people that are there to support you and be a part of that journey. Like Northern Ireland feels quite unique in that sense, where you're always almost one person away from just meeting anybody you could look up in Northern Ireland. You know what I mean? You'll always know you're just one away. So if you're starting a business on something and maybe you're not even necessarily an expert in that particular space, you could easily find someone that is, and they'll meet you for a coffee and they'll give you some advice. Like we're so collaborative, I think, over here culturally, that I don't really see that translate when you kind of leave Northern Ireland and you go to somewhere like London, or you go to somewhere like, the States. It's kind of, it gets progressively more kind of kill or be killed. But over here, it's kind of all just trying to help each other, like understand it's kind of tough out there, and we're all just trying to, starting a business is this thing that it takes a village. It takes support and help from other people. So there is this element of just do it. If you have been, for me, it was like, I think the biggest driver was I always try to, when I start something new, I always try to imagine myself kind of 5 or 10 years down the line if I didn't do it. And I feel like if I didn't, I would still just be going in my head, what if, oh, imagine I did. Oh, it would irritate the life out of me. That's why I just did it. And I mean, take it from someone that went out, failed, kind of fumbled my way to find my footing, went back to full-time employment and was like, yeah, this is still good. This is everything I remembered it to be. And then was kind of, you know what, I'm going to take another swing and I'm going to leave again. I don't even, what might have started out as feeling like risk. It's different than that. I think you can, especially in technology, despite all this narrative about jobs and the impact, and I know that that's there, but if you're experienced and you're energetic and you genuinely are good at what you do, you'll always find a job. I don't really feel like I'm taking a risk. There's plenty of businesses I could just walk into tomorrow because this is not work for me. I work like 10, 11 at night every night on weekends. I'm not working. I'm literally doing it as a hobby. I just got applied discipline to it and pointed it towards my business. That's so it looks like work from the outside. But I'd be doing it anyway, you know?
Brilliant. Cool. Good advice. And Kyle, what advice would you give to an engineer who's maybe 5 years, 10 years into their career and they're maybe feeling like they've stalled? So maybe not necessarily they have or feeling right, I've got an idea, I want to go out by myself, but actually I'm stagnating here.
I think so. I have been there at times in my career, and maybe I'm my own worst critic in this sense, but I know the way I would talk to myself in this situation is that, like, if you feel like you're stalling, you're probably not challenging yourself to grow. You're maybe doing something that's quite comfortable.
Yeah.
And if you consistently put yourself into situations or parts of a job or whatever, parts of a company, whatever, try new things and make it so that you're less of an expert.
Yeah.
I think you're just making yourself more valuable as an individual because you're just rounding yourself out with more skills. And maybe I know that you could certainly be in a situation where you're just working somewhere that's maybe not affording you an opportunity to grow. That's kind of a different thing, but you still have to prioritize yourself and explore what's out there. Meet people for coffees, you know, get a view of what's going on beyond your own company. But the first one, like not challenging yourself, that I think that's kind of a personal journey. And this is where it comes back to, like, whatever you do for work, my view on this is you're going to spend most of your life doing it. So assuming you like what you do, the next step is to optimize it for you as an individual, like navigate towards the parts of that industry or that job that you get energy from. Yeah. And for me, that is like stuff that I'm uncomfortable with is kind of weirdly energetic to me. Because engineering, like after maybe, I don't know, 8 years in engineering, you probably hit a point where it's like there's no new technical problems. So you're like, oh, I've never thought of this before. Especially services businesses, you're working on new problems every week or every month or whatever. So you're constantly exposed to new domains. I could get if you're maybe in the same product business for 10 years, and there probably is quite a bit of unknowns, and it would just be as simple as finding a new thing to work on. Yeah. But the latter, like where you're not getting the opportunity to grow, but you have this kind of desire, maybe that's more common. And again, not everyone's circumstances would like afford this as easily as others, but the most valuable skills I've learned throughout my career, whether that's new technology or new ways of working or whatever, they've always happened in my spare time. This is where it's kind of easy when you have that match quality to the job, like building things as a hobby, because I'm working on something on the weekends using technologies that the company I work for as an employee would just never have a reason, to put it in front of me. That stuff will just open doors and increase your options, but also like I totally respect people just want a healthy work-life balance and kind of get off the screen after a 9 to 5 on a screen. I'm not saying you need to be like all in. You just have to keep learning new skills, stay uncomfortable, and keep in mind, like I've spent over a decade of my career where I was part of a company that went from 300 people to 3,000.
Okay. Yeah.
If you want to move up in like the corporate world, fact of life, I guess you have to take on more responsibility. And sometimes you have to ask to do that. but most often you have to just take initiative, take it on informally, and then use it as evidence to formalize your position. I don't even think that's advice. I think it's just literally how corporate world works.
No, I think it's pretty sound advice. Brilliant. Closing final question for you today, Kyle. What's the one thing that technology leaders should be thinking about, should be considering today that they probably aren't, in your opinion?
Something that they maybe aren't. I feel like I'm kind of constantly having to relearn and reiterate this. It's really easy to get caught up in this technology, AI, and that technology, this whole like instant gratification and results that you get from it. I think it's going to be increasingly important for a technology leader to, first of all, stay hands-on. All my advantages as a technology leader through my career has been from the ability to just get on the ground, get my hands dirty, and lift the hood up and understand what's going on. But I think that with this technology, and when you adopt it and you start to see that you're not really writing code anymore, AI is just kind of pumping it out at a velocity that it's hard to keep up with cognitively. I think there is this need. I don't know if culture is the right word here, but there's a need to have something in the business where people are encouraged to just slow down and actually read the code that is being produced by these systems. It doesn't even need to be coded. Just read and understand and review the outputs of these AI systems, whatever that looks like, because you are still accountable for it. You can't really hide behind that, like, oh, the AI did it. It's your business. If you had any influence on that thing being created, it's yours to own. But the challenge, like the real challenge is, I can't remember who said this, but it's like the idea that when the AI is doing something for you, it's stealing the neural pathways that your brain would otherwise develop if you just did it yourself, right? So I think being cognizant of that means that there's probably some form of like study involved in what these systems are producing. Kind of really natural way that developers are tackling it is code reviewing everything that these AIs put out before it goes in. But there are companies out there that are, there's this term called an AI software factory, which is just agents 24/7 working on a roadmap, doing everything themselves, and you're asleep. So that world to me that's too far in, because you have absolutely no idea what's going into that system. It's like in that world, you're no better than this kind of what's called vibe coding, where you're literally running on vibe. You just describe some idea and let an AI build it. And you've no idea if it's secure or scalable or anything like that. So there's a real spectrum of things here that are like behavioral. But it's all grounded in, for me, that this technology is non-deterministic. You can put all the guardrails in the world you want in place. But if you ask this AI to do the same thing 10 times, you're not going to get the exact same result 10 times. There is variation. So you need to understand what it's producing. You need to you need to not get drawn into this, like everything is instant, the results are great, it's all coming out really quickly. Take a step back, understand it, keep the speed, but sacrifice a little bit of it to actually understand what it's producing is kind of my thing on this. Is I don't know if people aren't thinking about it, but I get drawn in, and I have to remind myself to just keep pulling myself back out and revising and reviewing, and as addictive as it would be to just let it go nuts, you know?
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, thank you. I've really enjoyed that. Some really, really sound advice and insights. So thanks again.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thanks everyone for watching.